There is an island in Japan where people forget to die, not metaphorically, statistically. On this island, 1 in every 10 residents lives past 100 years old. They do not take pharmaceuticals. They do not follow Western diet advice. They do not count calories or measure macros. They eat a plant every single day. In their soup, in their tea, in dishes their grandmothers taught them to make before the Second World War. This plant bleeds yellow, not white sap, not clear liquid, bright golden yellow, like turmeric, like warning tape, like something your body was never supposed to forget. When you cut a leaf from this plant at dawn, a new leaf grows back by the following morning. The Japanese named it accordingly. They call it tomorrow's leaf. It contains a compound found in no other plant on Earth. A compound that tells your cells to clean themselves, to take out the garbage, to remove the broken parts before they become cancer, before they become Alzheimer's, before they become the diseases we accept as inevitable. In 2016, a team of European scientists discovered this compound extended the lifespan of yeast cells, fruit flies and worms by triggering a process called autophagy, the same cellular cleanup mechanism that fasting activates. Except you do not have to fast, you just have to eat the leaf. The longest living people on Earth have known this for 300 years. They never published a study. They never needed to. They just kept not dying. And here is the part that should make you furious. You cannot buy this plant fresh in America. You cannot find it in any grocery store. The FDA has never approved a single health claim for it. Most Americans have never heard its name, tomorrow's leaf, Ashitaba, the plant that the longest living humans on Earth eat every single day, and the plant that virtually no American has ever tasted. This is not an accident. The history of Ashitaba begins in isolation. Hachijo Island sits 290 kilometers south of Tokyo, rising from the Philippine Sea like a forgotten outpost. Volcanic soil, harsh winds, humidity that rots most crops before harvest. For centuries, this island was a place of exile. The Japanese government sent criminals, political dissidents, and inconvenient nobles to Hachijo to be forgotten. They were supposed to suffer. They were supposed to die. They did not. The exiles discovered a plant growing wild on the volcanic cliffs. It thrived where nothing else would. It grew so aggressively that cutting it only made it multiply. When they ate it, because they had nothing else, they noticed something strange. They stopped getting sick. Not completely, not magically, but measurably, undeniably. The exiles of Hachijo outlived their peers on the mainland. They outlived their guards. They outlived the emperors who had sentenced them. Word spread. By the Edo period, Ashitaba was no longer a survival food. It was medicine. Samurai ate it before battle to increase stamina. Mothers gave it to children to ward off illness. Farmers chewed the stems for energy during harvest season. One 18th century shogun became so convinced of its power that he ordered Ashitaba cultivated on the mainland and restricted its export. He did not want rival clans gaining access. The plant was strategic. The plant was protected. The plant was power. Then the Americans arrived. After World War II, the occupation government restructured Japanese food systems. Traditional foods were deprioritized and Western agriculture was promoted. Within one generation, Ashitaba retreated to the islands. The mainland forgot, but the islands remembered. Today, Hachijo and Okinawa, both regions where Ashitaba consumption remained constant, contain the highest concentrations of centenarians per capita anywhere on Earth. Okinawa alone has 5 times as many 100-year-olds per capita as the United States. They did not achieve this through pharmaceuticals. They did not achieve this through supplements. They achieved this by continuing to eat what their great-great-grandparents ate. A plant that bleeds yellow. A plant that grows back overnight. A plant most Americans have never been allowed to taste. In 2016, researchers at the University of Graz in Austria decided to isolate what made Ashitaba different. They already knew the plant was dense with nutrients, vitamin B12, almost unheard of in plants, chlorophyll levels exceeding spirulina, antioxidants rivaling blueberries, but other plants had antioxidants, other plants had vitamins. Ashitaba had something else. They found it in the yellow sap. The compound was called 4,4-dimethoxychalcone. DMC for short. A flavonoid that existed in no other food scientists had tested. When they applied DMC to yeast cells, the cells lived longer. When they fed it to fruit flies, the flies lived longer. When they gave it to roundworms, organisms used in aging research for decades, the worms lived longer. In every case, the mechanism was identical. DMC triggered autophagy. Autophagy is the cellular cleaning process your body uses to remove damaged proteins, broken mitochondria, and malfunctioning components before they accumulate into disease. It is the reason fasting shows health benefits. It is the reason caloric restriction extends lifespan in laboratory animals. DMC activated this process without fasting, without caloric restriction, without hunger. The researchers published their findings in Nature Communications, one of the most respected scientific journals on Earth. The title was clinical. The flavonoid 4,4-dimethoxychalcone promotes autophagy-dependent longevity across species. Translation: this plant makes cells take out their own garbage and organisms that consume it live longer. This was not folk medicine. This was not anecdote. This was peer-reviewed, replicated, published science. But there is more. Studies from Japan found Ashitaba chalcones suppress tumor growth in laboratory settings. Research from Korea showed the plant's compounds reduce blood sugar spikes after meals. A 2019 study linked regular consumption to reduced inflammatory markers. The same markers are associated with heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. The data exists, the studies exist, the science exists. So why have you never heard of it? Why is Ashitaba not in every pharmacy, every grocery store, every recommendation from every doctor who claims to care about prevention? The answer is not complicated. The answer is economics. Here is how American food regulation works. A company can sell you a food if it is generally recognized as safe. That is called GRAS status. Traditional foods get this automatically. Novel foods require extensive testing, documentation, and approval. Ashitaba has been eaten safely in Japan for over 300 years. But in America is novel and foreign, and it requires proof. Who pays for that proof? Not the government. The company that wants to sell it. A full FDA approval pathway for a new food ingredient costs between $1 million and $5 million. Clinical trials, safety documentation, compliance reviews, legal fees. Ashitaba is a plant. You cannot patent a plant. Any company that spends millions proving Ashitaba is safe would simply be opening the market for every competitor to sell the same thing. No one will pay. So Ashitaba remains in regulatory limbo. You can buy it as a dietary supplement with no health claims allowed on the label. You can sometimes find powder imported from Japan, marked not for human consumption to avoid FDA scrutiny, but you cannot buy it fresh, you cannot find it in produce aisles, you cannot see advertising that tells you what it does. Meanwhile, the pharmaceutical industry generates $480 billion annually in the United States alone. The supplement industry adds another $50 billion. The processed food industry contributes over $1 trillion. These industries do not benefit from a plant you can grow in your backyard. They do not benefit from a food that prevents the diseases they profit from treating. Consider what Ashitaba threatens. If a single plant can trigger autophagy, the same processed drug companies are spending billions trying to replicate. That plant is not an opportunity. That plant is a competitor. Metformin, the diabetes drug now being studied for longevity, works partially by activating autophagy. Rapamycin, the immunosuppressant being researched as an anti-aging compound, works by activating autophagy. Ashitaba activates autophagy. But Ashitaba cannot be patented. Ashitaba cannot be monopolized. Ashitaba cannot generate the profit margins that justify pharmaceutical investment. So the research stays buried in journals most Americans will never read. The plant stays confined to specialty importers most Americans will never find. And the knowledge stays locked in island communities most Americans will never visit. This is not a conspiracy of villains in dark rooms. This is a system functioning exactly as designed. A system where foods that cannot be patented cannot be promoted. Where knowledge that cannot be monetized cannot be distributed. where the longest living people on Earth eat something every single day that most Americans have never been allowed to access. The plant is not illegal. The truth is worse, the plant is unprofitable. And in America, that is the same thing. Here is what they do not want you to know. You can grow Ashitaba yourself. The plant is hardy to USDA zones 7 through 10. It tolerates partial shade. It actually prefers the neglect that kills most garden vegetables. Seeds are available from specialty suppliers. Live plants ship from nurseries that operate beneath the radar of mainstream commerce. One plant produces dozens of leaves per season. Cut it today, harvest again tomorrow. The name is not poetry, the name is instruction. If you live in a colder climate, Ashitaba grows in containers. Bring it inside for winter. A single pot on a windowsill produces enough leaves for weekly consumption. The same frequency the centenarians of Okinawa have maintained for 3 centuries. The taste is green and bitter, similar to celery crossed with parsley. The Japanese add it to soups, tempura, and tea. The leaves can be dried and powdered. The stems can be juiced. Every part is edible. Every part contains the yellow sap. Every part carries the compound that Western science confirmed and Western commerce ignored. You do not need Food and Drug Administration approval to grow a plant. You do not need pharmaceutical permission to eat a leaf. You do not need anyone's authorization to access what the longest living humans on Earth have known for centuries. The knowledge exists. Now you have it. What you do with it is your choice. But consider what that choice represents. Every garden planted is a small act of independence. Every seed saved is knowledge transferred outside the system. Every meal grown is a meal that did not require permission, did not generate profit for industries that benefit from your sickness, did not pass through the regulatory machinery that decides what Americans are allowed to know. The centenarians of Okinawa did not wait for approval. They did not wait for studies. They did not wait for someone to tell them what their grandparents already knew. They ate the leaf. They outlived everyone who did not. Tomorrow's leaf. The name is not about the plant's regeneration. The name is about yours. If this information was valuable to you, subscribe to this channel before this video gets taken down. We cover the plants, the foods, and the forgotten knowledge that powerful industries would prefer you never discover. Hit the notification bell. Share this with someone who deserves to know. The knowledge is free, but only if it keeps spreading.